Yeah, good evening everyone. Welcome to the sixth session of Ethics Answer Writing Workshop. So today we'll be having our last session. In the last 5 sessions, especially in the last 2 sessions, we have been discussing different routine type of case studies. If you have written today's test, you might have seen totally different type of case studies we have been discussing today. Now even in UPSC, there is no standard approach. Nowhere it is said that you will get every year 6 case studies for 20 marks. Maybe next year the number of case study can change. Maybe 15 marker case studies can come. Second question today also, if you have seen the question, it is a typical GS section A question. Now these kind of question, if it is put in case studies, what is the necessary changes you should keep in mind while answering these kind of questions? Some questions are completely application level questions. A question on migration, rural urban migration, ethical issues related to it, that is being asked. First question of the today, similar kind of questions. So when you got this question, even in 2023, you had a question on social media. So compared to other traditional question, it was quite different kind of question, a different set of, even the questions are being different sets. It's not asking you to list down the ethical issues or options or merits, demerits. This is not the line of action for these kind of questions. So what should you keep in mind if one or two such questions comes? That will be our primary objective in today's class. So we have done how you should interpret the case studies. We have done a comprehensive analysis on what should be your approach towards case studies. Then we have, last class we have discussed in detail the different routine or repeated themes of these case studies. We have covered around 10 different themes in the workbook 7. What I want all of you to do is go through the workbook 7, make it as a standard model. It itself contains all the different elements of the case study. What should you write in the ethical issues? What are the standard arguments you should not miss out in the ethical issues? What kind of options you should generate? What kind of best option you should take? What are the reasoning you can give for this? Everything is covered in standard format in this workbook 7. Now speaking more, what I want you to do is, I told this in the last class also, I want you to work on this workbook 7. Make this as an integral element of your case study preparation. Add more points to it, add more examples to it, case studies to it. Add more current affair development to each of these themes. So at least 2 questions come, you can introduce that case studies with these current affair developments. Add some innovative, inventive options to it. So that if some themes are repeated, in that questions you will have a very inventive answer, which can really upgrade your marks upgrade the quality of your answers, which will definitely reflect in your marks. So this was all what we have discussed so far, how we are going forward with the case studies. So these are different parts of a standard case study: introduction, ethical issues, ethical dilemma, what are the different options available, everything we have discussed in much detail. What are different small differences in the question, how you should respect each and every word of the questions. Like in last class also, we have seen a question, list what are the various options available before you as CEO of the company. Now how you should approach this question, if the question is what action you could take in this situation, and what are the various actions you could take in this situation. Both these questions you will answer totally differently. If what action is asked, you should focus on 1 or 2 major actions, and you should comparatively explain why this is the better course of action or better action you can do in this situation. While what are various actions being asked, various word is coming in between, so you should add more number of different dimensions you could explore. Bring in last class also we have explored 4 or 5 options which the CEO of the company can explore. So give due respect to what exactly the question is being asked. Based on that you modulate your answer. If this modulation is not coming into your paper, your answer writing skills is still at the average level, and your marks will never cross these borders of 110 or 105 or 100 marks. You should learn to pick each and every word of the question, understand what changes you should modulate in your content, in your presentation, in addressing these changing demands due to the nature of questions. So this is the whole structure. Now stakeholder approach and problems approach, when how to read the case studies, we have discussed in detail. How you can think from different perspectives, stakeholders, while reading the case studies itself. How you can identify 4 or 5 problems that is being discussed in the case studies while reading the case studies. Either of this approach you can do. If you're a starter, it is always better to go with stakeholder approach. If we have fair bit of experience in reading case studies, or if you have done at least 10 case studies, then you can shift to problems approach. It is not like one is better than the other. You can go either of the approach depending on nature of the case studies. If more lengthy case study is there, then you should identify, you can go with either a mixture of both of these also. So this is all about how to read or interpret case studies. So that all different themes I'm not going to repeat in this class. Let's go into business straight away. So this is the first question for the day. If you haven't gone through the question, I want you to go through the question, understand the question, understand different demands, then we will see what you can write.
Sanitary pads and
So if you are watching on the YouTube, you can comment in the chat if you want to ask anything. Yeah, we don't have any chat right now, so let's continue the discussion. Yeah, very short case study, 2016 case study it is. Land needed for mining, dams and other large scale project is acquired mostly from Adivasis, hill dwellers and rural communities. So we have a statement. The displaced persons are paid monetary compensations. Stakeholders you can think of, Adivasis, or from whom the land is taken up. Now monetary compensation as per legal provisions. However, the payment is often tardy. So we have an issue identified here, that is tardy monetary payments when acquiring the land. In any case, it cannot sustain the displaced families for long. So whatever is money given to them, that is not enough to sustain these families. These people do not possess marketable skills to engage in some other accusation. They end up as low paid migrant laborers. That means everything is discussed about the problems faced by these displaced communities. Moreover, their development go to industries, industrialists and urban communities. That means the benefit goes to these communities, whereas the costs are passed to these poor helpless people. There is a difference in the cost benefit distribution in the society. This we have discussed in detail in the foundation class also. When we are discussing the justice, theory of justice, the question is all about distributive justice. The question is all speaking about distributive justice. We have a development project that is coming up. The cost of the project is all bared by these Adivasis, forest dwellers, hill dwellers and all. Where the benefits of this large scale project, that goes to the urban communities, that goes to the rich people, that goes to people who have skills and other amenities. The unjust distribution of cost and benefit is unethical. Exactly the stance is, even in the question, the stance is made very clear. It's not asking you whether it is ethical or unethical. The stance is made very clear. Suppose you have been entrusted with task of drafting a better compensation cum rehabilitation policy for such displaced person. How would you approach the problem and what would be the main elements of your suggested policy. So two things, again, respect the question. Even many students, I have checked the copy, I have seen you have not written two different parts of this answer. It is two different parts that is asked. Approach is asked as first part of the question, then suggested policy is being asked. So when you are writing the answer, both of these should be reflected in your answer. If either of this component is missing, then that much marks you are also missing. Fix this in your mind. Respect whatever is the words given in the question. So who is your responsibility? You have been entrusted with drafting the policy. Now, what are basics conditions you should know? You can think from the perspective of different problems that is being listed in these case studies and what can be the policy objectives for this. Even so many examples in India you can connect this with. Sardar Sarovar Dam project, we have Nandigram land acquisition issue in the West Bengal regarding the nano project, which often led to shootings and all this happening in the West Bengal in the last decade. Tehri Dam, which has been in news in the recent past. Tehri Dam, due to this land subsidence that is happening in the Uttarakhand. Now regarding the Tehri Dam issue was there. Tehri Dam also has land acquisition problems going on. Almost in every state, some or the other project has land acquisition problems going on. Polavaram project in Andhra Pradesh. Similarly, Dongri Kon tribe issues in Odisha. Narmada Valley, Narmada Bajau and Tolan. We have seen n number of issues related to this. So n number of examples of displacement, it is being a continuous recurring issue in all the major development projects in India. Even a recent discussion related to Silent Valley, the project has not been picked up, but this debate was going on in the Kerala also. So n number of issues, n number of examples you can think of. Best way to introduce this answer thus is giving an example. Whatever example comes to your mind, put that example in your introduction. This is one of the best way to introduce this answer. Now, two things, factual knowledge will greatly help you in answering these questions. Having a fair idea on what are different steps in policy making, identifying issues. These are a broad process. You don't need to understand each and every process as it is. But if you have a fair idea, these all major elements should be reflected in your suggested policy. Then that will give additional points to you, that will give additional arguments to you, that will give more consolidation to whatever policy you are suggesting. Identifying issues. So this we have done here. Whatever issues you have listed out here, your policy should address these issues. That is the first part. Then establish goals and objectives. There should be clear goals that should be stated. These are the goals to be achieved out of this policy. Explore policy alternatives. Like we are speaking about a displacement dam. Is there a feasible alternative? Then stakeholder analysis and consultation should be there. You should consult all the different people who are being affected by this. Draft the policy. Then even after drafting the policy, you should not complete your work. There should be a review and revised policy, and there should be an implementation element to it. In implementation, there can be grievance redressal mechanism. There can be fast tracking these grievances, procedures for that. So different elements should reflect in your policy. If you can keep at least 4 or 5 these elements in your mind, then that will give more number of diversity into your answer. Similarly, we have a policy regarding land acquisition. This has been in news. When it was introduced, there was a lot of controversy around it. It has been told that this policy backtracked the land acquisition, large infrastructure projects that is happening in India. If you have a fair idea of different elements of the policy, this also can greatly enhance your answer writing. Identify the stakeholder. Yeah, that is stakeholder. Either you can go with stakeholder or you can go with problem solutions approach also. We have done the problems approach in this case study because in the case itself there has been a lot of problems has been listed in this case. Not many stakeholders was being listed. That's why we went with problem statement. What is your name? MACMO, yeah, correct. So you can go with stakeholder analysis also, there is no issues in interpreting the case study. Now these are different provisions of this particular policy. Now if you have at least a fair understanding of this policy, at least 3-4 points which you can remember of this policy, that will also add value to your answer. So fair compensation should be there. Now everyone will write fair compensation should be there. What add value to your answer is, can you objectify what is fair? Now this policy has its own recommendations. Fair compensation means it should be 4 times in the rural areas, or it should be at least 2 times in the urban areas. So when you are designing your policy, instead of writing there should be fair compensation, you objectify it. And what is the rationale for your objectification? Rationale is this XYZ Land Acquisition Act in India of 2013. Going ahead, there should be a social impact assessment. What is social impact assessment? Every impact on livelihoods, impact on public, impact on community properties, impact on assets, impact on infrastructure. All these elements should be taken into consideration, especially when we speak about developmental projects. It's not about financial viability only. It should not be about financial viability. It should be about environmental assessment. It should be about social assessment, especially in a diverse culture country like India. It is quite important to have an objective social impact assessment before deciding key variables of this project. Similarly, resettlement and rehabilitation, what are the provisions you can provide? Mandatory settlement and rehabilitation of families affected by land acquisition. Affected families include landowners, families whose livelihood dependent on acquired land. So many a times what we see is landowners will be certain number of people, but more number of people will be dependent on this land for so many generations. Land will not be in their particular name, it will be in somebody else particular name. They will be living in this area for many generations. Now in this case, what to do? How to include those people who doesn't own the land but has been dependent on this land? So they should also find a mention or find a place in your analysis, in your suggested policies. Consent should be a primary important. Return of unutilized land should be an important. Like this policy speak about, if within a period of 5 years the acquired land is not utilized for the particular project, then it should be returned to the people from which who has been acquired. Consent means there is also quantification. Consent means whose consent? Consent means how many persons consent. If one person objectify, can you overrule the project? It is 80% of the affected families in case of land acquisition for private companies.